Hi folks, so we had a full moon in the sign of Aquarius a little under an hour ago. I'm doing this at about 12:25 Pacific time. We had it at 11:31 p.m. Pacific time. I want to thank you guys for your indulgence again. I mean, you continue to amaze me, those of you who watch my videos, with the flexibility you give me, and stay subscribed to my channel because so many people do these videos in advance and I do them when I can. I trust that it's going to meet you at the right time, and I hope you still continue to find it useful. And I just want to express my gratitude to you for being patient when I post these later than I would normally like, because I'm like you, I'm juggling all sorts of things. The full moon in Aquarius squares the planet Jupiter. Now, I do think that it is worth mentioning the following things. As we head towards the full moon, and some of this energy may still remain for another 24 hours, but by now, it really is as simple as by the time of the full moon, the energy crests. So I've described this as a wave crashing to the shore. There could have been, over the past 48 to 72 hours, a certain amount of momentum building as we headed towards this full moon, energetic momentum. It can start to lead towards irritation, feeling out of sorts, the ability to process things emotionally, especially. We reach our full, we reach our peak. So we don't always, around the time of a full moon, or as we're heading to it rather, have the capacity to be able to take what's coming to us, remain calm, and execute and manage. As things come to us and there's a peak or an escalation of things, particularly related to the Aquarius part of your chart. Where does Aquarius sit in your chart? What house does it occupy? What does that house stand for? There can be sort of this, milk coming to a boil, toppling over, wave crest to the shore. There's an energetic buildup. So increase in discontent, irritation, energy, activities, busyness, freneticness, franticness, even spilling over into feelings of discontent and anger can be part of full mooniness. It can sometimes lead to, either an overt or an internal tantrum. And it's always worth looking at, in my opinion, what is it that is coming to a boil and what is it that needs to be processed at that time, because it can lead you to what it is that a solution needs to be, particularly after a full moon. As I've mentioned to you before, the 5 to 7 days after a full moon are often the best times to get something done. I find that the energetic balance is, we've dealt with the escalation things from the new moon of Cancer, for example, to the full moon in Aquarius, and now for about 5 to 7 days, we can get things done, get things wrapped up, execute with a certain amount of equilibrium. And it's possible that unless something untoward is going on in your life, that that we aren't likely to be thrown. We aren't likely to find ourselves having to manage our own irritation, our own discontent, our own attitude, the way we do prior to a full moon. Full moons can also bring completions and offers and limelight, and the disk of the moon is full, spotlit by the sun. There can be that aspect of things. So it's not always bad news. They do happen every 28 days. So please know that this is a full moon and not an eclipse. It's not even 2 months before the eclipse. We're going to have that by the end of August. So I expect and hope that this has been a relatively normal full moon for you. Full moons can bring, but less than eclipses, things coming to a head, things coming to conclusion, completion. Issues related to mortality are less frequent than they are with eclipses and 2 months before lunar eclipse or 2 months after solar eclipse, but they can still, completions, conclusions, escalations, having had a bit too much, the cup runneth over, revelations, offers, completions, departures, can be part of full moon activity. Thank you for those of you who are familiar with all this, listening to all of it. But I think it's worth, at this point in time, reflecting as to where you are up to an hour ago and how you were feeling, and whether there was a certain amount of anxiety and energy. As you head towards the full moon, everything sort of starts to become like this. And then once the full moon is done, you can start to feel that pull back, so that whatever it is that is in the mix can get dealt with a little bit more equilibrium. So, and the disturbance of equilibrium and the peaking is clearly part of the cycle and part of the plan. So as I always say, if someone is directing a tantrum towards you, or you are directing a tantrum towards someone else, or something is reaching some sort of a peak, always worth it to take a step back and really understand what is going on emotionally. Is it a feeling or a fear of lack? Is it sort of scarcity is it envy? Is it anger? Is it jealousy? Is it hurt? Is it betrayal? What is it? Is it, what is causing the discontent? And that's really the right word with the moon: contentment and discontentment. And I really love the words in Hindi, sukhi and dukhi, because dukh is such and in Buddhism or Buddhism, however you pronounce that, the first noble truth, from what I understand, it's the word dukh that is used. All life is discontentment, or sadness, you could say, but discontentment is a better word. Dissatisfied. I like the connotation in my mind with those Hindi Pali words, sukhi and dukhi, around equilibrium and a lack of equilibrium, a sense of balance, but part of the human condition is to not be satisfied, or not be happy, or not be content. And so with the moon, that becomes exaggerated sometimes, the visibility towards it, and the question becomes, well, what is going to help this? What is the truth behind this that really needs to be looked at in order to be sorted? Okay, so there's the full moon. The full moon is in Aquarius, squaring Jupiter. The planet Jupiter has an interesting role in this full moon, because at the time, on the day of this full moon, the planet Mars, which is going through Virgo, also trines Jupiter. So the planet Jupiter receives what is traditionally considered a stressful aspect from this full moon in Aquarius, but also a supportive aspect from Mars in Virgo. As far as the full moon is concerned, the squares are concerned, the question that you need to reflect on looking back at the last 48 to 72 hours is Jupiter in Taurus is trying to create an auspicious new beginning, accompanied by an ending, as they normally are, in the sign of Taurus, where Taurus sits in your chart, what house it occupies, and what that house stands for. The planet Uranus is currently in Taurus, making you more authentic, big, loaded, wonderful, beautiful word in that part of the chart, seemingly rebellious, charting your own path. And even though the North Node has now moved recently, very recently, from Taurus to Aries, the last of the Taurus North Node eclipses is due to arrive on October 28th of this year. So August 28th, just the next new moon in Virgo, the week before, week after, the next full moon in Pisces. Sorry about that. The next full moon in Pisces, not the new moon in Virgo. The next full moon in Pisces, 28 days from now, the week before, week after, also are going to might bring important developments. To be more exact, the weeks before and after August 28th may also bring important developments related to this Taurus eclipse on October 28th. So the sign of Taurus is still very alive. Jupiter is getting ready to go retrograde on September the 4th, the same day, around the same time that Venus goes direct. Venus is currently retrograde. And so when Jupiter goes retrograde, between now and the end of the year, it's going to go over degrees that it has gone over since it was at about 5 degrees Taurus. So from 5 to 15, 5 to 16 degrees of Taurus are going to get a real work over. And just before, really a month or so before it goes retrograde at this point in time, we've got these developments. When you have a square, the faster moving entity or body or planet, in this case the full moon, and even to some extent the sun in Leo, because the sun is going to square Jupiter in about a week's time, action needs to be taken. These planets need to be allowed to act in order to allow Jupiter to create that new beginning in the Taurus part of the chart. So also with Venus being retrograde, Venus retrogrades are not like Mercury retrogrades. Venus retrogrades can still bring up opportunities. Venus retrogrades can still be leading us towards what our heart truly desires and what we value. Venus retrogrades are all about putting us in touch with what it is that we value and asking us to get a reality check with regard to the relationships and resources that are being made available to us and whether they're in line with helping us get to what we value and where it is that we want to go. Does that make sense? I will repeat that again. So Venus retrogrades can still continue to bring a fair amount of forward movement. So while this forward movement is still happening, Mercury does not go retrograde until August the 23rd, 24th. So till the middle of August, till even August 20th, I would say keep moving forward, keep planting those seeds. It may not be time to look for or experience a lot of clarity until after September the 15th. It may not be that momentum really starts to build until about after October the 15th. But even if that is the case, it's important to be in the mix and understand what opportunities are coming back. Some may come back from the past, and just observe as you head towards the middle of September what stays in the mix, what doesn't stay in the mix, how you make your choices, what you value, what you don't value, how you align your resources, how you get a sense of where it is that you want to go and the universe is responding to you with regard to where you want to go, whether that where you want to go is realistic, but also sometimes when it is that we have to and want to and articulate a desire to go somewhere, our own habits in day-to-day life may be in opposition to that because we may not be lean enough in terms of our routines, our habits. We may not be in a place where we are actively able to successfully create or walk down the path towards what we want because we could be comfortable with the way things are. And that comfort somehow is getting in the way with getting to where we want. And Venus retrograde is all about the kind of austerity and leanness that forces you to think about, if this is what you value and this is where you want to go, then where's your money coming from, but more importantly, where is it going? Your resources, are they supporting your lifestyle? That's the word. Your lifestyle, is supporting the direction that you want to go in terms of how you allocate and manage your resources with regard to who is in your life and whether they're supporting that and helping you with that, or whether they're somehow in the way by not offering constructive solutions or, whatever it is, different ways in which relationships that we know. And with Venus retrograde, it can be quite surprising which relationships fall apart or fall to the wayside. And you often already have an intuitive awareness that something about these relationships is no longer what it was or no longer serving you. So the Venus retrograde can also bring up relationships and opportunities that once Venus goes direct no longer have the same intensity, but still are important and have served a purpose in the conversation, because sometimes the presence of something can make you aware of where it is that you really want to go. Having options, having things come up, whether they stay or whether they don't, and don't be too hasty to make those decisions. Just observe until after September 15th. September 15th, Mercury goes direct. September 4th, Venus goes direct. September 15th, Mercury goes direct. So it's really as we head towards September 18th that we get a sense of, okay, so what have I committed to? What am I committed to? Where am I headed? And it could be that the movement towards this really somehow starts in October. And the question to really contemplate right now is how to, even if the path has not appeared and the opportunities have not appeared and pen has not been put to paper and commitments have not been made, who do you need to be in terms of your lifestyle to be able to move towards where you want and deal with the change? Do you have the resources to help fund or manage certain aspects of this change? Are the right relationships in place? When you have a full moon squaring Jupiter, the question to ask is, what has been revealed in the Aquarius part of my chart over the past 72 hours or so that I need to act on, work on, be aware of as I contemplate the changes that Jupiter is trying to make, the new 12, 13-year cycle that Jupiter is trying to inaugurate in the sign of Taurus? And what actions do I need to take related to the Aquarius part of the chart to further those, and support that auspicious new beginning, and also the ending of a 12-13 year cycle in the Taurus part of the chart. You may choose to act on these things, and as I said, over the next week or so, there'll be even more awareness around this, because the sun in Leo, which is opposing the moon, which is what creates the full moon, in a week's time is going to square Jupiter exactly. So this sense of awareness of what needs to happen on this Leo-Aquarius axis, the Leo part of a chart right now, the Aquarius part of our chart, to support Jupiter ending a 12-13 year cycle in the Taurus part of a chart and creating a new one, supporting the eclipse in Taurus coming up on October 28th, related to developments that may happen August 28th, week before and week after these dates, supporting Uranus's efforts to make you more authentic in the Taurus part of your chart. That is what I would contemplate. What came up, what created irritation, what created tension, what created friction, where did the cup bubble over, what may have created offers and opportunities that have to be acted on, what are the lessons around these offers and opportunities. Again, be less concerned with committing to things and more around how things feel. And it could be that you feel pressure to you decide to commit to something or not to commit, especially the committing to something. And by the time you get to after September the 4th or September the 15th is when you go, oh, this is what's actually going to hold and this is what's not going to hold. So you don't have to necessarily get too wound up unless you're really having to sign something. You may not have to get too wound up on decision making, as move forward as long as things feel right and they're going in the right direction. And if things fall apart while Venus is retrograde and you've done your best, let it be that. It's the manifestations I'm less concerned about right now. I'm more concerned about what manifests and what you commit to after September 15th, September 18th, and what holds. Prior to that, if you have to, just really check in with yourself and make sure that you really have a sense of comfort around what it is that you're committing to. And with Venus retrograde, there could be a little bit of relationship crossed wires, a little bit of acrimony that becomes part of this process. And if things are here to stay, let them stay. If things are not here to stay, despite your best efforts, just let them go for now, because the I's are likely to be dotted and T's are likely to be crossed until after September 15th. Okay. So in the Aquarius part of your chart, what has come to a boil recently, whether it is an offer, an opportunity, but also tension, and by Aquarius part of your chart, of course, I'm referring to what house Aquarius is in your chart, what that house stands for, and how can actions related to the Leo and the Aquarius part of your chart support Jupiter's new beginning? Where is there discontent that needs to be addressed? You may choose to address this immediately, or you may choose to make note of it and understand that you need to commit to making these changes. With Mars in the Virgo part of your chart, now this is more interesting. This is less. The full moon may bring up things and actions that need to be taken that could be immediate or could also feel longer term, because the discontent and the awareness may point to projects or things that need to be taken on that are going to take a certain amount of time to deal with to support this Jupiterian end of a 12-year cycle, start of a 12-year cycle in the Taurus part of the chart. The Mars trining Jupiter from Virgo to Taurus is a little bit more immediate. What actions and tasks have come up in the last week, week and a half, even 2 weeks, that could be supporting? What actions have you been taking related to the Virgo part of the chart? And remember not only to look at people and immediate things, but also what's behind it. So if Virgo is sitting in the third house for you, look not only at things like neighbors and commuting and sales, but also communication style and processing, sort of the spiritual connotations behind where you're at with regard to fitting in with your community. If Virgo's in the second house, look not only at obvious things like opportunities and pay, but also look at self-worth and what has been coming around addressing self-worth issues, supporting this Jupiterian new beginning over the past couple of weeks. So there's opportunity in the chart. There's opportunity. The chart is kind of bubbling a little bit with opportunity. There's just, stuff coming up that you've just got to get a sense of. It's a little bit like the Seven of Cups in Tarot. It's like, which of these cups am I going to choose? Where is this going to end up? And all you have to do right now is contemplate, ask the questions that feel right to you, move in the direction that feels right to you, keeping in mind that by the time you get to September 18th and into October, the path will become clearer and you will know which direction you're going around. Just try and remain in alignment. So just try and use your nose to give you a sense of what feels right at this time. You know, I'm not going to spend a lot more time on Venus retrograde right now. You can tell that there's something interesting here brewing. I'll do the next video on Venus retrograde and we'll talk through that and go over that, because the Venus retrograde in Leo is really the most important transits it's making are squaring Uranus in Taurus and getting ready to square Jupiter in Taurus. And it's going to square Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus 3 times, once when it was direct, now that it's retrograde, and once it's going to be direct again. So again, the Taurus part of the chart as we head to the October 28th eclipse, getting a lot of support, needing a lot of action. Okay, more on that. And this full moon squaring Jupiter in Taurus at the same time that Mars in Virgo trines Jupiter in Taurus is basically saying, and the current Mercury cycle, you know, still related, is a Mercury cycle that initiated in Taurus until a retrograde Mercury and Sun conjunct in the sign of Virgo when Mercury is retrograde. So we've still got another month of a bit related to communications related to the Taurus part of your chart as well. Put your attention there and figure out what actions need to be. And as I said, in the Aquarius part of your chart, pay attention to what has been coming up that has been creating red flags in your mind, and there may be short but also long-term projects you need to take on to help facilitate, related to the Aquarius part of the chart, that you need to take on to facilitate the Jupiterian new beginning. There could be an offer or offers or interviews or opportunities, that's the right word, that you may have taken action on, but things that have come up that you may really need to pay attention to at this point in time. Consider, really look at them. Are you going to take them? Are you not? Why are you saying yes? Why are you saying no? It's not a question of overthinking. Remember to use your nose. I would almost, unless you're really committing to something in a way that it binds you and it doesn't feel right to do so. Because here's the thing, you know, relationships and things that come up when Venus is retrograde, astrologically, I have to be fair and tell you that once Venus goes direct, the question is always, are they going to hold? And especially with relationships, they may come together and during Venus retrograde, they may feel really intense, only to your surprise to just kind of dissipate. And especially with the Mercury retrograde that's going to come up, the larger question is going to be, what is it that was in your blind spot that is no longer? And the Mercury retrograde is also happening in Virgo. So, you know, and Mercury's already in Virgo. One of the other transits that is happening around the time of this full moon is Mercury opposing Saturn. Mercury in Virgo, Saturn in Pisces. When the new moon in Cancer happened 2 weeks ago, Mars opposed Saturn. With Mercury opposing Saturn, it could be that in the Virgo part of your chart, this I think is not related to supporting Jupiter. This is related to challenges in the Pisces part of your chart, related to either delusional thinking on your part or a certain amount of thieving or loss in the Pisces part of the chart, or deception or gaslighting, where with Mars opposing Pisces, Saturn in Pisces 2 weeks ago, and Mercury now opposing Saturn in Pisces, you may have taken actions about 2 weeks ago to help support or manage taking the Pisces part of your chart seriously and finding constructive solutions and fulfilling solutions that require a certain amount of discipline. You may finally realize that you really need to be tackling issues related to the Pisces part of your chart that have been lingering since 2014-15 and building, and that action needs to be taken so it does not sabotage your life. 2 weeks ago with Mars, you may have started this process of taking action. With Mercury opposing Saturn, you may recently have really been thinking about a plan of action, about how to, you may have been committing to mentally, coming up with a plan mentally, taking the Pisces part of your chart seriously, mentally, and figuring out how actions need to be taken related to the Virgo part of your chart to support Saturn. When you have an opposition, the faster moving planet or the weaker planet should support, take action to support the stronger and the slower moving planet. So Mars 2 weeks ago, Mercury right now, in the service of Saturn in Pisces. What plans, thoughts, strategies, Mercury, mental commitments are you making? Have you been thinking about? And it may surprise you. You may think, why did I not commit to this stuff sooner? Well, you did not have Saturn in Pisces until May of this year going, all right, let's tighten this ship up. Enough, this has been going on for too long. Let's sort this stuff out. Take this seriously, or else there will be serious problems. Okay, so full moon squares Jupiter. We've got Mars trining Jupiter. We've got Mercury opposing Saturn. We've got Venus squaring Uranus, a retrograde Venus squaring Uranus. Again, this thing about a planet in Leo on the Leo-Aquarius axis squaring Uranus and Taurus, a planet in Taurus. So what actions need to be taken from a resource management and relationship management perspective, or reviewing opportunities that will make you more authentic in the Taurus part of your chart. And the final transit, and this has been following us for a while now, the North Node squares Pluto on August the 3rd. And again, the North Node has now shifted from Taurus to Aries. And there's some connection right now between the Aries part of our chart and the Taurus part of our chart. But again, contemplating where you want to go in the Taurus part of your chart, what it is leading to in the Aries part of your chart, and putting your energy there so that Pluto can finalize its transformation in the Capricorn part of your chart, a transformation that has been going on since 2008. There's something very meaningful to me about, and this transformation is very important in the second half of this year. It is your topmost priority to cooperate with, to make the changes that Pluto has been wanting you to make in the Capricorn part of your chart. Your topmost priority. It may not come up as urgent in terms of time sensitivity, but it is the most important, because what I don't want to see happen either in the second half of this year or the second half of next year is Pluto leave some sort of devastating event that requires you to make the changes that it is wanting you to make. So wherever Pluto is, really try and understand what has been going on since 2008. There's some link towards the direction you're required to move in the Taurus and the Aries part of your chart in a grounded way that needs the attention, the direction, so that Pluto can complete this transaction. What is it that is important? One of the things that you can ask, it really is a time to evaluate, and this is such a Venus retrograde word. It really is a time to evaluate what you want to see in the Taurus and the Aries part of your charts in the North Node eclipses, and how the Leo, the Aquarius, the Virgo parts of your chart actions in those parts of your chart can support everything that's been coming up over the past couple of weeks, even longer. What you need to do to pour yourself into this North Node eclipse in Taurus on October 28th, and also the Aries part of your chart, because it will really support this Plutonian transformation that is going on. It's a story. You'll find the link. You'll be able to piece this together, because the fact that this square has happened at the tail end of Pluto's transit means that there's something about this final chapter with Pluto's transformation of the Capricorn part of our chart that is sort of a full circle going back to 2008. And this North Node square gives you the final piece to say, if this is the direction you want to move in the North Node, if that is what is your calling it in a grounded way, then what is important for that will also be important for helping Pluto complete its transformation. And this transformation may very well be linked to the Taurus part of things, especially because Capricorn trines Taurus. It supports the transformation in Capricorn, is supportive to the recent eclipses and the next eclipse on October 28th in the Taurus part of your chart. And the fact that we've got Mars and Mercury right now, and in the Virgo part of our chart, these also will be supporting both the Taurus and the Capricorn part of the chart. So Mars eventually will trine Pluto. Mercury eventually will trine Pluto after it is retrograde and direct. Venus eventually, once it moves into Virgo, will trine Pluto. So they're still very active. The one transit that occurs outside of all this, as I said, is Mercury opposing Saturn, but that is really around securing the changes that securing how you're going to approach the challenges that you've been facing in the Pisces part of the chart, so they don't support all this forward movement and don't drain you. It's an Aquarius How interesting. It's an Aquarius full moon, so it's ruled by Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is in Pisces, ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. So one of the dispositors of this chart is Neptune, which is sitting in its own sign. Jupiter is in Taurus, ruled by Venus. Venus is retrograde in Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun is in Leo. So we've got Neptune, the sun, and with Uranus, Uranus is in Taurus. And so Neptune and the sun. And of course, at the time of this full moon, the sun opposes the moon, the sun in Leo. Again, you've got that Leo Aquarius axis, the planets in Virgo, and with Neptune and Pisces being a dispositor of this chart, really requiring you to pay attention to that Mercury-Saturn opposition as well, because Saturn is in Pisces and Mercury from Virgo is opposing Saturn. I know that my astrology videos are trying to cater to those people who know astrology, know their charts, know these houses, and other folks as well. For people who've stayed this long but are not that familiar with the charts, I would just say the biggest challenge of this time is waiting for things to manifest in a way that really feel clean and clear, which is not going to happen till after September 18th or so, and really into October, even the middle of October. It may well be that momentum really starts to happen after the middle of October, okay? Or October 1st, even if you want to sort of give it a timeline around that time. So one of the biggest and most confusing things is, especially for those of you who are familiar with Venus retrograde transits, is as opportunities come up, there's this paranoia or fear with Venus retrograde that is almost like a Mercury. I shouldn't commit to anything. And I would say be cautious, but don't treat it like a Mercury retrograde. Take every opportunity that comes up very, very seriously, and a serious prompt to think about whether it is in line with where it is that you want to go. Because it could be that the opportunities are coming up to force you to think about. It could be that an opportunity that comes up during Venus retrograde holds past the middle of September. But the reason why the opportunity is coming up is that it is forcing you to think of Venus retrograde things. Who do you confide in? Who do you talk to? Who are the relationships that are supporting you? And what do you need to do with your resources to become lean and mean, lean and functional, to be able to create the changes and move towards the direction you want to go? And if an opportunity comes around this time that actually holds past September 15th and just doesn't disappear, the opportunities that I see disappearing often or coming to nothing after Venus goes direct are often things, relationships, flirtations that come up while Venus is retrograde, not something you applied for before that comes up and that is unlikely to, it's more, and even with work-related things or projects that sort of disappear, it's often we're involved in them while Venus is retrograde. So if it's something new that comes up as a result of efforts made prior to Venus going retrograde and may actually start up after Venus goes direct, I would look at it quite seriously to see if it is being brought up here to prompt larger issues here with regard to if that is the direction I need to go in, if that is a project I'm going to be committing to, if that is something I'm going to move towards, then how is the fact that it's coming up while Venus is retrograde prompting me to think about what I need to do and how I need to think about my resources and manage them, and evaluate my relationships to see who is not somehow sabotaging or energy leaking me when it comes to really moving in the direction of these Taurus Aries eclipses that are getting so much support, and even with the squares, a kind of friction. Bottom line with the Aquarius full moon, and I'm just talking about the full moon right now, what changes need to be made? What came up over the past few days that created a certain amount of discontent in the Aquarius part of your chart that made you think, I do need to tackle this, and it may take a long-term project to do so, because Jupiter's new beginning in the Taurus part of the chart, which is going to be completed by May or so of next year, can be supported. Okay, that's the biggest thing to look at. Outside of that, with opportunities, there's plenty of opportunity during this full moon, with the Mars trining Jupiter and Venus retrograde squaring Uranus, and even opportunity to get serious about the Pisces part of the chart and come up with some sort of a plan or a mindset to figure out and commit to it. It's really kind of a mental commitment to sorting out issues related to the Pisces part of the chart that have needed a different kind of more rational approach, more intention, more commitment to sorting out things, as opposed to being overwhelmed by the loss or the deceptiveness or the delusional quality that Neptune can bring in Pisces. Okay, and remember, Neptune is one of the dispositors of the chart, as is the Sun in Leo. So what are these two? And the Sun in Leo getting ready to square Uranus, square Jupiter, and then eventually squaring Uranus, you know, and around August 10th, conjuncting a Venus retrograde. What is being illuminated in the Leo part of your chart? It's an internal awareness, very potent, very important to, like the King of Cups in the Tarot, sit upon the waves and get a sense of where things are going, and try to maintain some sort of internal hold on your spiritual practice so that you don't feel compelled to, don't get thrown by opportunities that are coming up that may or may not feel right. Don't get thrown by, don't go into a space of overthinking about, should I do this or should I? Just take the next step that feels right and just wait and see if it holds right now. Because it could be that there's a lot brewing. It's almost like multiple interviews and multiple job prospects. Someone is already making an offer, someone is coming through, but I'm still waiting to hear on this, I'm still this and still this, but if I don't do this, then this might happen. You've got to trust that the universe will help you on the right path. Just try to be authentic as you navigate through things, okay? And try to see what your heart is telling you. And don't assume that because an opportunity comes while Venus is retrograde, that it is wrong. It's more the things that we actually are initiated while Venus is retrograde, or projects or work that starts up while Venus is retrograde, that I'm more concerned about what happens to it after Venus goes direct. All right, enough. Longer than a usual video by a good 10-11 minutes. I hope you found it useful and helpful. There is something about it that is going to make you think and make you go, but I think it's a very internal energy right now. Things are happening externally. There are things that you're going to have to react to, that you may already have been reacting to. With Mars trining Jupiter, there may have been opportunities over the past couple of weeks that you have shown up for interviews. Whatever it is, you know, wherever these planets are happening, looking at properties, I'm thinking about different parts of the chart, dealing with legal matters or inheritance matters, you know, depending on who you are and where these transits are happening. It's not that external action, external opportunities are not there. They absolutely are. What makes it as an internal is that things may not be collapsing into a place that really make you think about, okay, I've heard back from everybody and now I feel really clear and settled about what is on the cards for me. And you're not going to get that till the middle of September, I don't think. Okay, if you like this, found it useful, share, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon and the wiggly bell one. If you click on the bell on top, there's a wiggly bell thing. Please do click on that because you'll be notified when I do new videos. Thank you for your patience with me when I do because of my video posting frequency. Comment on the video if you feel so inclined. All this kind of gives it more traffic on YouTube. Thank you. I'm going to leave it at that, and we will see each other soon. Thank you.